36 people are gathered together in a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall. 25 others are joining in online. In the car park, a man shoots 10 rounds into a vehicle at a lady. She manages to escape unharmed. This shooter enters the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses and lets off 135 rounds of ammunition. He kills 6 people. He injures 8 other people. One of those 8 was a pregnant lady carrying a 7-month-old baby. That baby has also died. 7 people have lost their life to this heinous incident. How am I meant to feel about this heinous act is the question I'm going to go through in this video. A lot of people ask me why I bust these Ponzi schemes. Often I start my videos and I say, hey, I'm Danny the Heck, aka the Crypto Ponzi Scheme Avenger. A lot of people criticize me and wonder why I'm so out there at exposing these Ponzi schemes. Because I was brought up a Jehovah's Witness. I got kicked out of this organization when I was 23 years of age. I lost everything and I had to start over. So this video is about my personal story as a Jehovah's Witness. This shooting is a heinous act. And I feel for the people and their families who have lost people who are Jehovah's Witnesses. But I'll say again, how am I supposed to feel about this? Let me give you some background about the shooter. The man had no criminal convictions, and he was not known as an extremist. The police admitted they received an anonymous letter because of his anger towards the Jehovah's Witnesses and his former employer. He was 35 years of age. He was a former Jehovah's Witness, and he left the church voluntarily. The incident happened in Hamburg, Germany. They raided his apartment afterwards. They found 15 loaded magazines, not watch, chair and awake magazines, and each of them had 15 cartridges, and he had 4 boxes of ammunition containing over 200 cartridges. So it does sound like he was going to return. But the police acted fast. Within 8 minutes, they had cornered him upstairs, and he took his own life by suicide. What really gets me about this incident, because just recently we've had one of the biggest announcements ever. One of the governing body members, his name is Anthony Morris, he seems to have a drinking problem, and the organisation have actually kicked out one of the governing body members of the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is what happened to me. Now they put an announcement on the website and they took it off a few days later. They also put an announcement about the shooting on their website, and as far as my knowledge goes, it's also been removed. They've also alleged that the shooter, and this is the part that really got me, was part of the ex-JW community. Now, the ex-JW community does not encourage anyone to go on a shooting rampage and kill Jehovah's Witnesses. The whole thing about the ex-JW community is about helping people that have gone through one of the most heinous acts of shunning. When you are kicked out of Jehovah's organization, you lose everything. And this is why I want to tell my story. And I also want to put this into perspective. And the question that I'm going to keep saying to you guys, how am I meant to feel about this heinous act where a gunman who was previously a Jehovah's Witness, we're not sure of the facts because it's still fresh, but theoretically, This guy was baptized at the age of 30, and this incident where he took his own life, he ended his own life at 35. And he'd left on his own free will. Now, whether he discovered it wasn't God's religion, I don't know. We don't know. So we can only assume a few things. But let me tell you some of the facts that has happened in my life, and I can tell you why I'm not sure of how I should feel about this situation. Now, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, I used to spend 60 hours of my life every month knocking on people's doors, looking for lost sheep, trying to convert them into Jehovah's organisation. I personally believe, and I'll say this now, that the organisation is just a printing organisation. They print magazines and they rely on people, evangelists, going out there and selling these magazines, and I think that's how they roll, because they've got tons of money. They've got so much money that they invest in a lot of worldly organisations. One of those organisations is Walt Disney. Now, if you don't know Walt Disney and what they invest in a website called Pornhub. So, effectively, the Jehovah's Witnesses invest in Pornhub. You think they would do their due diligence, wouldn't you? Anyway, I want to make it perfectly clear that the ex-Jehovah's Witness community do not condone heinous acts of violence. In fact, we're here to help people who have gone through the dramatic experience of being shunned by the Jehovah's Witness organisation. And this video of Danny DeHeck, the crypto Ponzi scheme avenger, is actually all about telling the Jehovah's Witnesses they need to change their ways. Now, my personal story, I've had my stepfather and my sister die by suicide. And I believe that the organisation was making it so hard for them to live up to the expectations that they always felt like they fell short as a human being, and they took their own life. Now, just going back to the incident at Hamburg, the other religions in the area wanted to they are putting on memorial services for the loss that the Jehovah's Witness organisation went through. The Jehovah's Witnesses have made a statement basically saying they're outraged about this because they don't want other religions being involved they don't do funerals, they do memorials, and they don't want other churches involved. In fact, when I was in the Jehovah's Witness faith, we used to pray for the day that God would come and wipe out every man, woman, and child that was not following the beliefs of the Jehovah's Witness. They also pray for the day when God will do away with false religion. So if you're not in the religion, you're not a Jehovah's Witness, and you're not in the fold, then they believe that Jehovah is going to come and destroy every man, woman, child on earth. And the Jehovah's Witnesses are the only race that is going to be left on the earth, and they're going to spend 1,000 years cleaning up the earth and putting it back to the paradise earth that God originally intended to. So Jehovah's Witnesses don't want anything to do with the world. When I got kicked out of the Jehovah's Witnesses, I was actually told that worldly people were wicked and not to be trusted. And it took me a long time to realize that I could trust people, and that's amazing. So I'm 53 years of age. I left the Jehovah's Witnesses I got kicked out for having premarital sex at the age of 23. I used to sit at the back of the Kingdom Hall, and I bawled my eyes out every meeting because I was so distraught. I lost my job. Well, I used to work for myself as a painter and a decorator, but I had to hand over my business. So I didn't have to, but it would have been incredibly hard to continue. I also had to move out of home. Actually, I already were out of home. So I basically lost everything, a lot of things. So I'll explain in my blog. Now, this very blog that I'm about to read to you guys, my mother decided she wanted to get it removed off the internet because she felt I was blaming her. And she went to court explaining that I was stating this was an act of violence. And she was seeking a protection order against me because I stood up to basically relayed my experience as an ex-Jehovah's Witness. And also, just a couple of days ago, which got me back on the bandwagon, my brother has decided to start commenting on my YouTube videos about busting Ponzi schemes. And this is what he writes. Mr. Boring D. Heck. He misspells my name and he makes fun of me. So then I started texting my brother, and after 2 hours of texting, I got all the messages he wrote to me and I put it in AI and I asked him for a summary of the messages that he gave me so that I could tell you guys the mentality of a baptized Jehovah's Witness and how they talk to other family members when they shouldn't be talking to us anyway, but the type of mentality. So I just want you to listen to this if you don't mind.
In summary, the messages from Rickie Charlesworth via text are mostly defensive and insulting in nature, with a few attempts to engage in a discussion about religion. He accuses Danny Heck of being a coward, nasty, ugly, and a piece of shit. He claims to have a good relationship with his family and a depth of knowledge, particularly from the Bible. He also asserts that Jehovah's Witnesses are the only true religion and that Satan has nothing to do with them. Overall, the messages are confrontational and not constructive.
So this is someone that's been a Jehovah's Witness basically all his life, and he was just mocking me, making fun of me. I mean, everything that's happened in my life, I should just harden up and get on with it. So I'm not going to bore you with that. But the funny one was my mother, who lodged the complaint with the court stating that my blog, my video, and my podcast that you'll be listening to right now was an act of violence. And she writes out an affidavit of it all. And I'm just going to basically tell you the outcome of someone who thinks that they can try to take some YouTuber to court and get them off. And it's easier if I just let you listen to this.
What actually happened is that 2 weeks before the court case, she phoned me up as she was concerned about my mental welfare. I informed her that she was taking me to court in 2 weeks' time, and if she was generally concerned about my welfare, she would stop this. She made it clear that she wasn't pursuing it. It was Ashley, my nephew.
Yeah, so my nephew was pursuing the court case. My mother was concerned about my mental state of mind, and she'd rung me up. I'd had 4 phone calls from my mother over the last 2 years. I record all of them. So I gave them all to the courts and said, here's the phone calls I get from my mother. Listen to the way I'm speaking to her and the way she's speaking to me. Does it sound like someone who was committing an act of violence? And it turns out that my nephew was pursuing the court case. So the next part's quite funny.
7 days after the phone call, I received an update from the courts telling me that the court case was no longer happening, but they would like to mediate between my mother and me. As my mother has now been deemed medically unfit, my nephew would be representing her in a non-legal discussion with the judge.
So the judge decided that we didn't need a court case, but they would, out of kindness, meet with us and do some mediation.
The outcome was that I agreed not to have any further contact with my mother. As for my blog, my video, and my podcast, I had the perfect right to publicize my experience. I have been shunned by the Jehovah's Witness organization.
So, if you're not following what I'm trying to do here, is I want to tell people my story. I've already done this blog in the past, and I got quite a fantastic response from the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. I don't actually hang out there much these days because I find I want to have I just want to have a separation from the Jehovah's Witnesses. But when I'm minding my own business and I haven't heard from my brother for 30 years, I haven't had a decent conversation, and all these videos about me busting Ponzi schemes and the like, then he decides to come in there and poke me with a stick. I spent 2 hours from 12 to 2 a.m. in the morning chatting to him, and I wasn't nice and I'm not polite because I don't have to worry about my language, the way I speak to him. But every message coming back to me was telling me how I'm a fool, how my mother doesn't love me, and you don't have anything to do with your family. But he seems to forget the fact that my mother doesn't want anything to do with me because of the religion, and she literally loves Jehovah more than me. And then he brings in other things about my nephew, and my nephew basically hasn't got anyone in his life because his mother, unfortunately, took her life by suicide. He alleges all sorts of things. He doesn't know the whole background. So what I did is I decided to write my story. And I have been in discussions with a publishing company, and they are talking about publishing a story about my life, because this is just one chapter. But it all relates to the Ponzi scheme busting stuff I'm doing, because there's a real big parallel. A lot of people often ask me, why do I do this? And I said, because of my upbringing as a Jehovah's Witness. Now, how am I meant to feel when somebody goes into a Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses and shoots people and kills them and injures 8 people, kills an unborn baby? How am I meant to feel? This Jehovah's Witness organisation has shunned me. They have kicked me out. They didn't care. I used to sit at the back of the Kingdom Hall, bawling my eyes out for 4 months. I used to go to 5 meetings a week, and 2 of those meetings are 2 hours long, and no one ever come up to me and asked me how I was going. They shun me, and this is their way of showing love. They believe, treat them mean and keep them keen. And the religion, Jehovah's Witnesses, need to change the way they treat people who aren't following their beliefs, because shunning them actually kills people. I know, personally, I could put up my hand and say I know of at least 50 people in my own brain that have decided to take their life by suicide, but I know from my chatting to other people that thousands and thousands of people have taken their own lives because they can't live up to the expectations that the Jehovah's Witness organisation puts on them. So this message explains my whole life. I put it down in writing, and I actually got quite a lot of therapy from it. But my family criticised me for speaking out, because when you speak out about Jehovah's organisation, and very few Jehovah's Witnesses do, you're labelled an apostate. And you're taught at the Kingdom Hall in the meetings that those same people would have been attending that if you ever speak out about Jehovah, then you're an apostate. And you're told that apostate people are the worst type of people. It's like when I'm doing these Ponzi scheme videos, the people who are running the Ponzi schemes tell people not to watch things on YouTube because they don't want people to be exposed to the truth. So I'm exposing the truth. Now I'm going to make this font a little bit bigger so that you can see it. And hopefully you'll be able to read along with me. Now, if you don't know, even though my family will keep telling me I use victim mentality and I keep telling people I am dyslexic, well, I am dyslexic. I use voice recognition. I use all the technology out there. So I select the words I want to listen to, and I have my computer read them to me. And I love being dyslexic because I've learned a lot of neat tricks when it comes to technology.
As a disfellowship Jehovah's Witness, I have had thoughts of suicide and have suffered from extreme loneliness. Disfellowshipping someone after a dramatic life event and shunning them from their family and friends in a time of need is a common practice in the Jehovah's Witness faith. I believe this is a contributing factor as to why so many people die from suicide after disassociating themselves, getting disfellowshipped, or not being able to live up to the high standards that Jehovah's Witnesses are expected to meet.
So at the age of 23, I was kicked out. Okay, you've got that, no big deal. So what does it mean for someone who grows up in a religion? Well, I got to the age of 23, never had sex with anybody. I also never swore until the age of 23. I might have said a few words like bloody, but I never said the F words, the C words, or anything like that. So I'm pretty pure, and I grew up in the religion with a lot of my friends and family. I didn't know any better. I never joined any sports teams. I never had any worldly associations. And I never had any education to go with it because we weren't meant to get educated because the end of the world was coming. So that's what that basically means. So when I got kicked out and I lost everything, that was the worst time in my life. That's when I needed my friends and family around the most. But the Jehovah's Witness organisation says, nope, strip him away from anything. He needs to learn hard and fast, and basically threw me out the world. So that's the honest truth of it. Next 2 paragraphs.
The detrimental effects of suicide on family members are usually not discussed. Instead, many focus on the person who died and what led them to the point of suicide. No one or no organisation is held accountable for what drove a person to take such drastic action. My sister and I were raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. I was baptised, and my sister was an unbaptised publisher from what I can remember. Our mother, who still loves the religion more than she loves me, will undoubtedly continue on her Jehovah's Witness path until she passes away. She loves Jehovah with all her might.
In fact, the very last words my mother said to me when I last went around there to try to say, hey, Mum, why can't we just have... Because my mum and I are really close and I love it a bit. Excuse me, don't drink and YouTube. And I said, Mum, can we have a relationship of some kind and just never talk about religion? And it turned into religion again, and she just wants the best for me. And if I love Jehovah, then everything would be good. And she feels I've had a fantastic life. I've traveled, I've been to 35 countries, I've had my own businesses, I've got some beautiful people in my life, I've got some fantastic friends. My mum knows nothing about my life, and they assume, and they keep telling me that I'll be happy if I come back to Jehovah's organisation. I don't even believe the crap anymore. I don't want my friends that I've met in the world to die, will be destroyed at Armageddon. And that's what we prayed for every single day. 3 times a day, you'd pray for God's will to be done. And that would mean that he's going to destroy all the wicked people and take away all the false religions. And the only religion that's going to be left is the Jehovah's Witness organisation. So it was a pretty hard time. All right, I don't want to bore you too much. Let's get into the next one.
How and why my mother became involved with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me, how do you get involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses? And I said, well, I got baptized when I was 16 or 17, but my mother was a Jehovah's Witness. So this is how she got involved. And it's quite a cool story, so make sure you have a good wee listen.
One day, 2 Jehovah's Witnesses knocked on our mother's door and left a Watchtower publication, which she took out of politeness. The next week, when she saw them coming up the driveway, she had a cunning plan to crouch down so they couldn't see her. However, they caught her through the window, and she had to open the door and said she had a bad back and couldn't stand up or talk at the moment. The persistence of the 2 Jehovah's Witnesses who initially knocked on our door managed to strike up a Bible study with her, and the rest was history. Our family found this quite humorous for years.
Yeah, no, we did. So Mum went to the door, all bent over, saying, I've got a bad back. And they go, oh, you poor lady. And they said, oh, they showed her compassion. My mum, well, I won't ruin the blog. Listen to this.
Our mother was in a terrible state. Her ex-husband was an alcoholic who left us when I was 2.5 years old. While we never went without, there was no doubt that we were poor, and our mother was struggling. When a group of people showed her love and compassion and gave her a community, she certainly jumped at the chance to become part of the worldwide brotherhood.
Yep, the community in the Jehovah's Witnesses is why I always say 50% of people are in it because of the community, and the other 50% of the people are trying to find the purpose of life. So it's a perfect organisation. Yes, but my mum, my father was a shocker. I do remember twice him coming home from the 6 o'clock closing of the pubs, and he walked into the door and smashed all the glass, but I can't quite remember what happened. I think my mum could have even locked him out. I don't know. It was all a bit of a flashback, to be honest, but I still remember him walking through the front door and smashing all the glass.
I have various memories of my real father, Bruce Charlesworth. I remember him walking through the front door and breaking all the glass after coming home drunk from the pub one night. Shortly after, my mother and he divorced. I recall him visiting once and giving me a stuffed basil brush toy and pushing it in my face, saying, boom boom. I met my father again when I was 14 years old when he came down from the North Island to attend my brother's wedding. Ironically, he had the same sense of humour as
Poor bastard.
myself. When I started travelling New Zealand, I thought I would call in and see my father at the age of 23. He wanted to give me a gift, a piece of paper with a whole lot of usernames and passwords to porn sites. This was the biggest impression my father ever gave me as a dad, other than having flashbacks of Boom Boom. Bruce Charlesworth smoked and drank himself to death, having lung cancer at the age of 53. A week before he died, he sent me an email disowning himself as my father, telling me that my mother had a bastard child, just when you thought it couldn't get any more loving.
Yeah, so my father disowned me a week before he died. And part of the reason that happened is my sister decided to go up and see him a week beforehand, and at that time I was trying to save my sister from all her drug abuse. And she basically said, I don't even know what she said to him, but he turned on me and he told me I was a bastard child. He showed me an A4 container and he said he threw up that much, I will say it, blood in it because his lungs were so bad. He was in a real bad state. It was quite sad, but 53 years of age, he died. Hey, I'm 53 now. I just realised. So my father, I'm outliving my own father. That's pretty shocking. But yes, he used to own pubs and I used to go visit him. I remember my mate Kyle, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. I said, hey, my father owns a pub. Let's go and visit him. And we did. And I think I drank more alcohol that I've ever drunk in my life because it was free. My father used to live had a pub called the Arahui Tavern. I think it's on the corner of Fielding and Palmerston North Turnoff, and he used to have a lot of bikies turned up there. Literally, when I met my father, he pulled out a 7-piece pistol, took out the bullets and showed me this gun. It was a heavy gun. I've never seen a handgun in my life. And I said, what do you got this for? And he said, I said, we get a lot of bikies coming along to the pub and we protect myself. The police took away my sawn-off shotgun last week and I've got this. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, then the barman turned around and you could literally see the gun hanging out, tucked down the back of his trousers. That's how rough my dad's pub was. But when I'd been a good Jehovah's Witness boy, witnessing that sort of stuff, I hate using the word witnessing, was just mind-blowing. All right, let's carry on. I'll read that paragraph there. The word font's a little bit big. I know we can do it. Here we go.
Let's be clear, living life as a Jehovah's Witness wasn't all bad. I had a lot of friends. There was a small group of us labelled the Rat Pack, consisting of Tony, Jeremy, Paul, Grant, and Kyle. We grew up together, and we all had crushes on the same girls in the congregation. We all wanted the same things out of life, experienced drinking alcohol for the first time together, and loved hooning around in our vehicles. I had an Austin 1100, Tony had a Ford Escort, and Grant got one of the first Japanese imports. With electric windows, Paul was a real rebel as he was into motorbikes. Another Ford Escort lover was my dear friend Jeremy. His father, Murray, was a mechanic and one of the best elders in the congregation. He would help us when things went wrong with our vehicles and also gave us a lot of fatherly advice.
Yeah, it wasn't all bad. I just, a year and a half ago, and I've got to go see him again, Stephen Aiden. I caught up with a guy I hadn't seen for 29 years, and it was just like yesterday. And he was an awesome guy, but he'd been through the whole 9 yards, the same as me. And I keep bumping into these people. You see people and you think, oh my God, are they Jehovah's Witnesses or not? Because if you walk up to somebody in the supermarket and go, g'day, mate, and they're a Jehovah's Witness, they'll just turn around and walk away from you. They don't want anything to do with anyone that's not in the Jehovah's Witness. And the same, there was another guy, I do Park Run, which is a worldwide running 5K thing each week. I met this guy and I said, look, I've just been avoiding you because I don't know whether you're in the church or out of the church. It's just shocking. And I'm just going to actually go through and tell you what happened to my friend Tony. Now, Tony Martin was Kerry Martin and Ray Martin. Now, when I published this the first time and my mum tried to get this video removed or this blog and this podcast removed, I reached out to Tony and I said, hey, how you going? Ignored me. So I reached out to his wife. She blocked me on LinkedIn. And then I said to Tony, hey, remember that time that you tried to do something naughty to me when you were growing up? And I said, if you don't message me back, I'll tell everyone about it. And then all of a sudden I get this email back from him. You tell people that story, I'll do you for defamation. So, and he didn't want anything to do with me. But we're all trying to figure out about life. And we were so, restricted in everything we thought. It was shocking. So Tony Martin didn't like the way that his father used to treat me because I used to be a foreman in the business. And Tony got a bit jealous and he finished up going over to Australia with his wife and starting his own business up over there. Jeremy Calder sent me an email just a wee while ago after corresponding with him a few times. And he said, basically, I have seen what you do on the internet and you're apostate and I can't have anything to do with you. So that's him. He was a bit close friend. Then you got Paul Hollins. He changed his name. Don't know what happened to him. Would love to contact him. He had one of the hardest upbringings ever. He was a real rebel. But I can't contact him. I can't find him. I can't go through my old friends and find out what happened to him. Now, Grant and Kyle. Now, Grant was a dear friend, asked me to be his best man at his wedding. I refused at the time because I was a staunch Jehovah's Witness and his fiancée was dressed inappropriately. So I didn't want to be connected to a lady that was dressed inappropriately and be the best man, so I refused. Tony Martin also asked me to be his best man, and I refused because I didn't like what his wife was doing at the time and his conduct. I was high and mighty, I think. Anyway, long story short, Grant and Tony were best mans for each other's wedding, so that's what happened there. However, Grant was still a Jehovah's Witness. He was delivering pamphlets into the letterbox one day. His wife and his child were sitting in the car. A truck was coming down the road, and the guy that was driving the truck had a medical condition, blacked out. The truck went over the other side of the road, and his wife actually watched him get ran over by a truck and died. I went along to the memorial service. Sharon, his mother, Kevin, his father, and Kyle were there, and there was about 250 people in doing a memorial service, because the Jehovah's Witnesses don't do funerals. They cremate people, then they have a private ceremony for the family, and then they have a memorial service because they believe everyone's going to get resurrected to earth. It's no big deal. So I went along to this event. People were coming up to me. I literally had Tony Martin whisper in my ear, "Come back to the church, come back to the church." He would run his hand down my back like we were real close. We were best mates forever, because he tried to do some pretty terrible things to me when I was little, Tony, and I don't care. And then the next thing, his father come up to me and he said to me, "Danny, you need to leave." He said, "Because people don't know whether you are disfellowshipped or not." Now, if you haven't been following the Jehovah's Witness thing, when you get baptized and you stuff up, you go to a judicial committee, and when you're naughty, you get kicked out if they think you're not repentant. If you're not baptized, then it doesn't really matter. They can't do anything to you. So I was disfellowshipped and kicked out of the church, but I wanted to show my respect to my mate Grant, who got killed, and Kyle, he was a dear friend of mine as well. He was there, and Ray Martin told me to leave because that people didn't know whether I was kicked out or in, and they were coming up and speak to me, and it was all wrong. A lot of people did speak to me, and I remember seeing some old faces, and it really was about showing my respects to Grant. So all this shooting that happened earlier on, and the other religions wanting to show their empathy towards the Jehovah's Witnesses, this is why the Jehovah's Witnesses are in an uproar, and they don't want other religions to stick their nose in the Jehovah's Witness affairs. Very same. So when I left that day, I was walking out of the Elms Hotel in Christchurch, and Sharon, which is Grant's mother, ran up to me and gave me the biggest hug ever and said, "Danny, I know how hard it would have been for you to come here today. However, Grant would be so happy that you came and showed your respect for his life." And that was just amazing. I walked out of those doors, and I just burst into tears, because everything about my upbringing just hit me like a ton of bricks. And if I told this story to my brother or anyone else in my family, they would tell me to harden up and just get on with it. They don't know anything about how people think mentally, and they don't know me. They just don't care about anything other than just Jehovah and themselves. So that was terrible. So unfortunately, Sharon, Grant's mother, she died. Kyle was swimming in a local swimming pool. He had a brain hemorrhage and he died. So the only one left in that family was Kevin, the father. And he's still in the religion. He met someone he knew about 2 months, I think it was, after he lost his wife, and he's remarried. So the only ones left are Tony and Jeremy, and they're both married. Well, Jeremy's married into someone who's quite staunch into the Jehovah's Witnesses, and he doesn't want anything to do with me, even though these guys are my closest of closest. So we went through a lot of experiences. It wasn't all bad. We had a lot of fun. I think I smashed about 6 or 7 cars in my time. So let's read this.
One of my fondest memories was going on a family holiday with the Jones and Martins at O'Kane's Bay. We spent the whole week playing cricket on the beach, fishing off the rocks, and enjoying each other's company. It was a time when we could forget about the pressures of being Jehovah's Witnesses and just enjoy life.
And we did. We really enjoyed those holidays, because I didn't have a father in my life. Robert, my stepfather, came into my life for only 18 months, and it was our normality. We finally had the Joneses, we had the Martins, we had the Fords, and there was another family, the Wakefields, I think it was, and then there was the DeHecks. And, and we just had a normal life for a while. And we went to O'Kane's Bay about 3 years ago. I went back there, and a guy looked at me because I was looking at where we used to stay, and he said, and I said, "I used to stay here as a kid." He showed me through the house, and all these memories come back to me. And I just remember so much about it. Right, next paragraph. This will be going on too long.
Being raised as a Jehovah's Witness without a father figure meant that I often sought advice from the elders. They took me under their wing and helped shape me into the person I am today. I used to tell people, who needs a father when you have 5 different elders in the congregation to get advice from? The Jehovah's Witnesses were my family. It's hard to imagine losing both your virtual family and your real family in an instant.
Yes, and that's really, really true. I mean, being a single in a single parent arrangement, the elders really do spend a lot of time and they look after people in the fold. But when you get discommunicated, you're on your own. But I did always think I was quite lucky because whatever problem I was facing, whether it was a mechanical problem or whether it was I like a girl problem or a drinking problem or I needed some advice in business or whatever it was, I could pick what elder in the church I could talk to and they would spend the time and put me on the straight and narrow, so to speak.
The impact of disfellowshipping and speaking out against Jehovah's Witnesses.
All right, here we go. Let's get into it.
I was disfellowshipped for the first time when I was around 22 years old. It was devastating. I felt lost and alone. I continued attending meetings, sitting in the back row of the Kingdom Hall and crying my eyes out at every meeting. The elders must have felt pity for me because I was reinstated after only 4 months.
Yeah, so it was a world record, but no one ever, not once, did anyone ever come up and check on my mental state to see if I was okay. I was shaking, literally tears streaming down my face, and I used to sit there and no one ever came and asked after me. The only thing they did, they had a meeting and they said I could come back and be, which I was stripped of all my privileges. When you get kicked out and you get reinstated, you have to basically, you can talk to other brothers and sisters in the congregation, but there's no way that you can actually participate. You can't go out door knocking or preaching, which you're brought up with. So you guys were lucky we didn't knock on your door.
But 12 months later, I was disfellowshipped again.
Oops.
I spent the next 12 months trying to get back in, but I eventually gave up. My downfall, or from other people's perspective, my saviour, was my inability to control my sexual urges. Having sexual relations before marriage was not allowed, and this was something I struggled with, which led to my disfellowshipping and my eventual failure to get reinstated. I hope you can empathise with me as this is truly one of the most personal experiences to publicly post. On my blog, broadcast on the What the Heck podcast and stream on my YouTube channel But What the Heck. I will let you judge whether the Jehovah's Witness organisation had an impact on me, or my family members who died from suicide. This is pretty raw information, so it's not for people to read who want to continue living a sheltered life. So if this is you, stop reading now.
Yeah, so I just will have a bit of a disclaimer here because I've since I've been busting Ponzi schemes, I've had people ring up and email me and message me telling me they have suicidal thoughts because of what the predicament they've got in. And when I was doing this blog originally, it really did impact me a lot. And I actually find it better being transparent about my life. I was brought up in a religion which told us never to lie. So I don't lie. I tell the truth. I'm really transparent. In fact, I'm probably too honest. I don't like having secrets. I've been told off for every decision I've made until all my life, basically. But now I don't really have a filter. But I don't have any shame in my past. I'm not looking for any empathy. I'm just telling you my story. And then you may understand when I go back to this original, this terrible, terrible shooting, how am I supposed to feel? How am I meant to feel about the Jehovah's Witnesses getting shot by a guy who has been involved in the church, left on his own initiative, wasn't disfellowshipped as far as we know, even though he was baptized? He's obviously had an argument with some lady in the car park. Who knows? It could have been his girlfriend. It could have been somebody he loved. And then he's done the heinous act of shooting 6 people dead, injuring 8, another lady losing an unborn child that was 7 months, been 7 months old. It's heinous. And then the Jehovah's Witnesses are alleging that he was part of the ex-Jehovah's Witness community and that we support acts of violence. I have had my own gun license. Never have I felt like shooting any Jehovah's Witness. And the only reason I'm really involved with the ex-Jehovah's Witness community is because my niece got kicked out of the religion about 5 or 6 years ago, and her brother, my brother, her father, has nothing to do with her. And I thought I would stick my neck out and get involved and get more vocal, because people who speak out are called apostates. So when I see that the Jehovah's Witnesses have had somebody rampaged in there and murdered their own, They need to re-look at the way they treat people and the shunning of Jehovah's Witnesses. They are shunning people. They are kicking, but they are doing, if this was a workplace, they would get sued for millions of dollars for the way they're treating their staff. And it's just a heinous act that they do to people in a time of need when they're trying to come to terms with their own life. So anyway, let's carry on before I get in a rampage.
The organisation labels people who speak out about them as apostates, and I was taught to avoid apostates at all costs. I believe this is one reason a lot of people don't speak out about the organisation, as we don't want to be labelled as bad. In the modern day, non-JW world, it's called discrimination. Another reason why it has taken me 30 years to discuss this is my respect for my mother and for all the sadness she's had in her life. I don't want her to have any more pain, as she feels she has already lost her son, daughter and husband. However, she just gets stronger in her faith every day, as they are taught that they will get persecuted closer to the end of the system of things and need that increased strength.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one for me, because a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses don't speak out because they don't want to bring shame upon their family. Well, I'm way past that, kids, because my mother has made it very clear that she doesn't want anything to do with me, and she loves Jehovah more than me. And she thinks Jehovah is just the bee's knees, because Jehovah was introduced into her life when her life was shit. And it's been a crutch all her life. And it blows me away that my mum and I, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, the only way I'm ever going to have a relationship with my mother if I go back into an organisation like the Jehovah's Witnesses, who teach us to pray every night for every man, woman and child to be destroyed by flames of fire and sulfur coming from the heavens, where Jehovah is going to do away with all the wicked people. All the non-believers are going to be destroyed and taken off the planet of the earth. And the false religions are going to be done away with. And they believe that's going to happen any day now. That Tony Morris guy that's just been kicked out. There's 7 governing body members in the world. Once upon a time, every single one of those guys believed they were going to go to heaven. And they believed that was counting from 1914. And then when it got to 2014, everyone basically had died who was anointed. So they had to come up with new rules. And then they say, there's a scripture in the Bible that says the light will get brighter nearer the time of the end. They have an answer for everything. Just like these Ponzi schemes that I bust, they have an answer for everything. But it doesn't mean it's real. They just keep promising people that there's going to be a paradise, and it never eventuates. And this is exactly the same. I'm not very good at highlighting that. All right, let's see what this one's all about.
The more I speak out about the religion and the effects it has had on my life, the bigger the wedge the organisation drives between me and my family. These days my immediate family hate me, and the silence towards me is deafening. Their strategy is to shun you, in the hope that you are going to return to the flock. Apparently this is done out of love for my welfare. The Jehovah's Witness religion is one of the most selfish religions in the world, as it really is all about unconditional love for Jehovah at all cost. The hope is that if you are faithful, you will live on a paradise earth, and every other wicked person will be destroyed, including family members and friends that have been disfellowshipped or who don't follow the beliefs of the organisation. So, if you serve Jehovah and do exactly what he says, you will get through. Everyone else will perish, and you will not have any grief to live with in paradise.
How about that, man? So they really believe that everyone's going to get destroyed. They don't understand anything about mental health or suicide. I believe that I'm a bit of a spokesman for those people that have died by suicide. And, like this, I call it a religious cult. They don't like it. They've actually taken people and to court for claiming they're not a religious cult or a set. They believe they are a religion. They are a money-making organisation. As I said earlier, they actually invest in Walt Disney, and they have lots of shares. They have a $1 billion company, and they actually, Walt Disney, invest in Pornhub. So the Jehovah's Witnesses are funding, things like Pornhub, which I think is quite funny. I hope you don't know what Pornhub is if you're a good staunch Jehovah's Witness.
The impact of the Jehovah's Witness organisation on mental health and suicide.
All right, so this is where shit gets real. Now, this is my life. This is stuff that happened. This is stuff that you don't put on the internet. This is stuff that people told me not to put on the internet as a Jehovah's Witness, because you keep your private affairs private. But I am transparent. This is my story. This is the impact that the Jehovah's Witness organization had on my life, and I'm proud because it's made me a better person. So if you are a bit squirmish and you don't want to listen to why people have had taken their own lives who are associated with the Jehovah's Witness, and you don't want to hear about it, then hey, thanks for subscribing to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. Nice to have you here, 45 minutes in. But this is where it gets real. This is when the rubber meets the road.
I'm a bit of a storyteller, and I'm a pretty open person. The story I'm about to tell you has been inside my head for quite a few years, and it's time for me to share it with you.
Alrighty, now I'm going to let you listen to this paragraph, and then I'm going to go away and get another can of beer, because I needed a bit of, as they say, Dutch courage. 1 minute, please, caller.
My stepfather and my sister both died from suicide at the age of 36. I believe they did it because of the pressures that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society puts on people to live up to high standards. I was born in 1970 and have lived a pretty good life to date, but that wasn't always the case. I'm not bitter and twisted. It's just my life experience I'm sharing.
Yeah, and it's really important that, because my brother, I mean, I only get the feedback from my immediate family. I've got my nephew that was trying to take me to court to get this information removed off the internet. The judge said I'm allowed to have my own peace of mind. My mother was forced into writing a letter to the judge, basically saying that she felt like this was an act of violence. And I never have actually said, and I never will actually say, that the reason why two people in my life took their own life or died by suicide is because my mother got involved with the Jehovah's Witness organisation. I believe my mum needed this organisation in her life at the time, and it's been a great community for her, but it's not for me. And I just want to be set free, left alone. Just get off my Facebook page, get off my YouTube channel, my brother I'm talking about, and stop posting stupid messages, because when you do, I want to fight back. And I just tell the truth, mate. That's all I need to do. You think you guys have got the truth. But yeah, it's shocking. All right, so let's get into this one. I'll have another beer.
I'm very active in ex-Jehovah's Witness Facebook groups and comment on YouTube videos far too much. Often, I tell people that 2 people in my immediate family died from suicide, and I believe it is due to the pressures that the Jehovah's Witness organization put on their lives. I believe that they couldn't live up to the high expectations, and this was the reason they died from suicide.
Yeah, died by suicide. Now, when I originally did this, I said committed suicide. And somebody corrected me and said, don't say that, because people commit suicide sounds like they got mental illness. But people just have had enough, and they've decided to die by suicide. There's an option out there, and I'm not condoning that's an option, don't get me wrong, but it is a nicer way of putting it. So if you want to show compassion to somebody that may have lost somebody who decided to die by suicide, then what's your terminology? Because it really does make a difference. I've never had suicidal thoughts as such. I've battled with I have had suicidal thoughts, but it's just not somewhere I wanted to go, as much as that sounds. But I used to be more rampant in Facebook groups than I am today. But I wanted to get my message out there, because there's so many people that I feel I can save who don't feel like they know how to build up friendships. We're told that people are worldly and they can't be trusted. So when you get kicked out of the organisation, everyone around you is someone that you have been taught is going to get destroyed very soon. And also you've lost you've actually lost the hope of living forever on a paradise earth. This is how we deal with grief. As a Jehovah's Witness, you're told that everybody that dies, like my mate Grant, that got ran over by a truck, that we will see him again in a paradise earth, in a blinking of an eye. He will return, and he won't know any pain or sorrow. And his family are the ones that will miss him until they're reunited. After Armageddon, there'll be a resurrection of all those people, including the unborn children. Yes, unborn children will be resurrected. And often the question is, well, how will they know, at what age is an unborn child a human? Like some people, I know one lady who's had about 6 or 7 miscarriages. So are each of these miscarriages unborn children going to be resurrected? And how will they know who their mother is? You know, all these questions come to mind. But the Jehovah's Witness, they have an answer for everything. Let's have a listen.
What blows me away is the response I get from Jehovah's Witnesses. This peace-loving group doesn't show empathy or any sensitivity. Instead, they are cruel, unkind, and harsh with their words, and they instinctively defend the organisation and dismiss any connection between suicide and the cult.
Right, so let's just summarise what my brother, I'll just read one paragraph. So I used AI, I went through all his messages, and I asked AI to summarise the main substance of what he was trying to tell me. And this paragraph basically reconfirms that.
In summary, the messages from Rickie Charlesworth via text are mostly defensive and insulting in nature, with a few attempts to engage in a discussion about religion. He accuses Dan Eddie Heck of being a coward, nasty, ugly, and a piece of shit.
Yeah, so it's really strange that my brother, I said to him, hey, well, Rickie, if you really care about me, let's get together and have a discussion, face to face, you and me, nothing violent intended in that. And he said, there's no point, because I know that you are not willing to change your mind. And I'm going, oh my God. I said, obviously, he's never going to change his mind. He's stubborn. They had to laugh at that. But anyway, my stepfather, as I said, people often ask why my name is Danny DeHeck, and I own deheck.com. So check out that website. I feel I'm living my father's legacy, my stepfather's legacy. The only person I know as my real father is my stepfather. He was only in my life for 18 months. But he was a funny guy, humorous, and he died at the age of 36 years of age.
My story starts with me telling you a little bit about my stepfather, Robert D. Heck. The reason I am called Dan Eddie Heck is that I wanted to continue the family name. These are the names of my family: Danny D. Heck, that's me; Rickie Charlesworth, my half-brother; Linda Warfield, my sister; Trish Kidd, my mother; Samantha McInchie, my niece; Ashley Warfield, my nephew; and Robert D. Heck, my stepfather. We are family.
Yeah, we're family. All those different last names. Most families only have one name. We've got a few.
My stepfather, Robert, immigrated from Holland sometime around 1970 with his brother Bert, who lived in Auckland with his young family while we were based in Christchurch.
I tried to contact the Bert de Hecks. They must have moved, I think, to Australia. Can't find them at all. I know they had Joshua, Marco, and I think Sylvia, something like that. I can't remember their daughter, but I can't contact them. So if anyone knows any de Hecks and you know Bert and Sonia and Marco and Joshua, if you're not Jehovah's Witnesses and you want to be in contact with Danny DeHeck, by all means. I've gone through the internet and found all the DeHecks that are on the internet. I found about 25 of them. I've offered them all free email addresses if they want. But I'm the only DeHeck that I know of. And if you're wondering what the meaning of the name is, it's actually the fence. It's a gate. There you go. I'm a gate. All right, let's carry on.
Robert was the life of every party. He was funny and very witty. He was also one hell of a shopper, never satisfied or content. Looking back, I feel he was trying to find happiness by purchasing items. A typical Saturday morning saw us kids being filed into the HQ Holden station wagon and driving off to New Brighton Mall, often returning with a car full of stuff that we didn't really need. From a kid's perspective, it was fun times for us all, and from the outside, we probably looked like a normal Kiwi family.
When Robert passed away, he had life insurance, and the life insurance was $10,000. All the hire purchases that he had were covered by the life insurance. And basically, he left my mum debt-free. But at the time, we're talking when I was 9 years of age. So I'm 53 now. So is this 40 years ago? It's a long time ago. 43 years ago, 44 years ago. $10,000 would have been a lot of money. But that was actually... how much of a shopper he was. Now, he was only a painter and a decorator. We used to go, I remember going to Merivale, which is quite a flash place to go shopping, and he would purchase $600 worth of groceries in one shop. And this is when I was 9 years of age. So he wasn't shy of spending money, but I think he was spending money trying to find his happiness.
A big part of my life was dealing with the silent treatment. Robert would go for 2 or 3 weeks without talking to the family. However, when someone turned up unexpectedly, he would be perfectly normal, humorous, and witty. And I assume that when he was working for his clientele as a painter and decorator, he acted exactly the same. I believe he was either bipolar or battled with depression. However, I'm no psychologist.
Yeah, so we didn't really know what was wrong with Robert. But as I said, he'd go for a couple of weeks without speaking to the family. People would turn up, it would be perfectly normal, and then we'd be knocking on people's doors in the weekend preaching the word of God because we love Jehovah. Jehovah.
Trish Kidd and Robert D. Heck were Jehovah's Witnesses. Anyone who didn't know the situation at home would think they were just two normal Jehovah's Witnesses who actively preached the word of Jehovah from door to door. Hopefully, they didn't look for people hiding in their houses.
Ha ha. Yeah, and I do a bit of public speaking. Well, I used to do a lot more. I used to be part of Toastmasters for 5 years, and I was actually the president of 2 Toastmasters clubs, and I was also part of the biggest Toastmasters club here in my hometown, Christchurch. And I remember talking about my father who died by suicide and about how the Erebus crash in 1979 actually affected him dramatically. So that's why this part's in here.
The 1979 Mount Erebus disaster really affected Robert, so much so, he spiraled down to a new low. One day shortly after the disaster, he decided to end his life. He told my mum he was going to kill himself, so she lay down behind the back of the car so he couldn't drive off. However, he said if she didn't move, he would drag her inside the house. This was the last time my mother saw Robert alive. He drove to our family camping spot in Cosford and drank whiskey from a glass milk bottle as he gassed himself in his car. Children on a school trip found him in the morning.
And what we didn't know at the time is Robert had tried previously to take his own life by suicide. My boss, Ray Martin Limited, knew of it and never told my mum, so we didn't know what we were dealing with. And the Jehovah's Witnesses didn't understand anything to do with mental health at the time. In fact, if anyone took their own life, it showed they showed disrespect for life. So there was no help out there whatsoever. So what was the aftermath? Well, let's get into that.
Previous. View larger image. Breaking free from the Jehovah's Witness faith, coping with disfellowshipping and its consequences. Danny D. Heck entrepreneur.
Oh, sorry, I read the wrong line. Let's try doing one at a time.
The aftermath of suicide and life with Rickie Charlesworth.
Yeah, so I'm just going to add a wee bit in here. Rickie was like a father figure in the family before Robert come along. When Robert come along, my new stepfather, who was only in my life for 18 months, he basically stepped on the toes of Rickie. So after he took his own life, Rickie basically resumed his position as the head of the house, because in Jehovah's organisation, Jehovah, there has to be a man in the head of the house. A bit different these days, but not in the religion. The woman plays the secondary role. The man is the head of the role. The Jehovah's Witness organisation actually originated from Pentecostal beliefs because Tails T. Russell, whatever his name is, discovered this religion in the 1900s. And if you look at the history of it all, it's quite interesting. But yes, women play a secondary role. They must have normally they have a head covering on if they are taking a leadership role. But when you see them out and about in the community, they don't do what the brethrens do and have a head covering on. It's only when they are, if they were to give a prayer in the house and a man was present, they had to put a head covering on. How about that?
My mother was devastated, and the congregation elders quickly got involved. Alan and Dave came around in the evening and told my sister and me that my stepfather had taken his own life. I still remember forcing myself to cry as I didn't even know what it really meant. I was 9 years of age, and my sister was 11.
So how do you process the fact that someone tells you that your stepfather has died? And I didn't even go to the funeral. And they basically, I know they took my sister on away. My mum was so devastated that we didn't ever go to the funeral. It was amazing. Anyway, Alan Wadhams was the guy's name, and Dave McCulley. Now, Dave McCulley, as far as I'm concerned, I think he's still a Jehovah's Witness. He was an ex-farmer. He talked to me in my judicial committee. He was one of the ones that decided that I wasn't repentant and kicked me out of the religious congregation. Alan Wadhams, Jared Wadhams, was a friend of ours, and I've had something to do with him since, which is quite interesting. But Alan Wadhams was a very close family friend. He decided the Jehovah's Witness organisation was crackpot and got out of it, caused a big ruckus. And I remember that, but I didn't know anything about the dealings of it. But obviously there's guys in it, they've been in it all their lives, and they've had arguments with other elders, and they've got out of it. So that is something that literally can happen.
My mother blamed herself for his death and carried the shame associated with someone who showed disrespect for their life. Even 7 years after Robert died, I would still wake up to my mother crying. I would ask, "Are you crying about Robert?" And she would answer, "Yes." I would reassure her by saying, "That's okay as long as I know what you're crying about," and go back to sleep. This was what my life was like for many years. I also remember my mother locking herself inside the bathroom, and we had to call a family friend to talk her out of the bathroom as she wanted to end her life. Despite not having anything to do with me now, my mother and I still share a close bond today.
We do have a close bond. Yes, we had to ring up Thelma Jones, the Joneses, a very close family to our family. They looked after us. They were like my godparents. My mum ever died. They said that they would look after my sister and myself. And I had to ring up Thelma Jones and say, "Mum won't come out of the bathroom." And she rushed around, and Mum, I don't know what was happening, but she obviously didn't want to be on the planet anymore. So she was so distraught. And, to be honest, the Jehovah's Witnesses didn't want to have anything to do with us because my father took his own life. And that is showing disrespect for life. And they didn't have anything or any knowledge about mental health at the time. It may be different these days, but they just basically left us to it. And this is how 7 years after that happened, we were still trying to process what actually happened. And if my father turned up, knocked on the door, I would have no surprise to know he's still alive because I never had any closure. They didn't even let my sister or myself go to the funeral. Well, the memorial service. They don't do funerals.
After Robert died, my half-brother Rickie Charlesworth resumed his position as the head of the household. He was just a teenager, more into his own life and very selfish, showing little empathy. He was hard-nosed and stubborn, and 9 years older than me. I remember one day Rickie had an argument with my mother after Robert died. She was complaining about something he was doing while washing his car. Suddenly, Rickie got so angry with my mother that he picked up the bucket of soapy water and threw it in her face. Rickie showed little respect for anyone and employed a she'll be right attitude, which was irrelevant, especially when Robert was around.
Yeah, I remember that as clear as day. It's amazing. And, when you're watching two people having a chat and you sort of think, oh, look at this, and then all of a sudden it just gets out of control. I really feel for my brother because he did a pretty good job. We did a damn good job at being a provider for the family. He was thrown into that role. And we all have arguments. Oh, apparently you're not allowed to say you get angry these days, but he did a pretty good job. So, it's just such a shame I don't have any relationship with my brother anymore because he loves Jehovah more than anything. He doesn't even have a relationship with his daughter. She was baptized, so she got disfellowship. His two sons weren't baptized, so we can still have dealings with them, but they hadn't dedicated their life to Jehovah. And he's got an awesome family. And there's a photo at the end of this blog that I'll show you, and it's me standing there with his family. It should be him standing there.
Anger was something that was hard to control for myself and obviously for Rickie as well. I believe he is also a victim in all of this. It would be fair to say that I don't blame my brother for his actions, as it was a hard time for all of us.
Yeah, and something I didn't put in here, but I remember being a youngster, being so frustrated and so angry for what happened. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. And I remember going out to the garage and punching the corrugated iron shed, leaving dents in it with my knuckles and losing all the skin on my knuckles because I just didn't know how to process stuff. And I never hit anyone in my life, but so much anger. And I just remember the whole situation was just, you couldn't process it. But in the Jehovah's Witness organization, you've just got to have a stiff upper lip and carry on marching forward and not have any emotions or not have any weaknesses, because we're only here for a short period of time and then the whole world's going to be destroyed and everyone's going to be done away with and there's going to be no more worldly people on the earth. It's just going to be all the righteous are going to possess the earth. Oh, it just makes me sick now. I mean, these guys believe that God's going to come in and destroy the earth with fireballs. And the only people who are going to be left are the Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what they get taught. This is what they pray for. They don't want any false religions. They're just shocking.
Rickie had to move aside for the 18 months that Robert was in our lives, and after Robert left, Rickie resumed his position as the head of the household. It was clear that Rickie resented Robert, and looking back, Rickie did his best to be a good provider for the family. To this day, he continues his faith as a Jehovah's Witness. There's no doubt that Rickie had a major impact on my life. He was a role model, got married at a young age, had 3 children. Sadly, all of these children are no longer active Jehovah's Witnesses, and also divorced. Recently, his daughter got disfellowshipped, and despite living 10 doors down from her, he is now shunning her from his life, hoping she will return to Jehovah and his earthly organization.
Oh, and it's just so hard to watch. I mean, Jasmine is one of the most beautiful people I actually know. And we're not even a close family. Like, I love Jasmine, and we send messages probably just about on a weekly basis. And but I don't go out. I went to see her probably over a year ago. And we moved into a new house, and she came and picked up some stuff that we gave her. But we just don't see each other like we should, not like a normal family. And I say to Jasmine, I go, look, I feel like I'm a terrible uncle, but none of us sort of do the family thing because we just don't do it. Not because I'm naughty. We just have to make what seems like 5 times the effort as to other families. Like my partner and her family, at Christmas time, we go up to to Auckland, and we meet all the family, and they don't have any of these horrible things going on like I do. And they just have a beautiful family. And I sit here at Christmas time, they're all giving presents to each other. And I didn't celebrate Christmas. I don't do birthdays. And I'm sitting here thinking, these guys have never, my partner has lost her mother, and that's the first death in the family. And they have a normal family. And it's just something I can't process. I don't have a normal family. And I try to have, So anyway, as this paragraph says,
I'll be totally honest, a lot of my upbringing is actually quite blurry, and I can't remember many other things from the age of 10 to 15. I still have a lot of flashbacks about things that happened.
Yeah, things keep popping into my brain all the time. And this isn't about me having, my brother and other family members tell me that I'm, what do they call it? I can't remember what it is. I'll probably remember after this paragraph.
However, I have a few more stories to tell. I do remember my sister at the age of 14 sneaking out of her bedroom window and doing what 14-year-old girls probably do, like sneaking out to Space Invader arcades. The answer to this problem was helping my brother nail her bedroom windows closed to prevent her from escaping at night time. Another time, my sister had gotten a new 12-speed racing bike, which she loved, but as a punishment, my brother decided to get it out of the garage, put it on the front lawn, and turn the sprinkler on it. He told her that it would rust and be ruined, which was meant to force her to be a good girl and to stop her from being a rebellious teenager. I didn't help either. I remember spying on her walking home from school and watching her hide her cigarettes to prevent my mother from finding them. She would get angry with me when she found out her stash was destroyed.
Yeah, victim mentality was what I was thinking of. But you might think, oh, so what? Brother drags my sister's bike out of the garage, and to teach her a lesson, he's going to put it on the front lawn, near the street, put the hose on it, and then tell her, doesn't know, that the bike's going to rust and it's going to be no good. So that bike, we were poor. We didn't have money. When my father died, we got given some money that sat in a trust. And I think it was about $1,000. Well, no, it was $300. And the only way that money could come out of the trust was for purchases of things that we needed. So my mother got the money for the bike from the trust. When I got to the age of 18, I think it was 18 or maybe 21, I got a phone call from a guy telling me that I had like $1,700 that I could have access to because $300 had compiled with interest, but like a Ponzi scheme, over so many years, and it was now $1,700. And I actually bought myself a bike with it, would you believe? So it was a big purchase, for the family, and for my brother to teach my sister a lesson, and I don't really blame my brother. I mean, I have flashbacks of things that happened, But, we're all trying to process how we should live our life and how we should act. And I once again, I'm not going back and saying my brother's a naughty person, but he's brainwashed by the Jehovah's Witness religion. He was doing what he thought was what they wanted to keep people on the straight and narrow.
With all the dramas that the family was experiencing, we did not know how to deal with the situation that we had been forced into. This made my mother stick even closer to the religion, as it was like a crutch that she relied on in her time of need. Mum used to say she was unworthy to be a witness. I was ticking all the boxes as a Jehovah's Witness. I even started auxiliary pioneering, spending 60 hours a month knocking on people's doors, which made my mother very happy.
Yes, I think I'm not sure of the timeline of some of the stuff, but I've tried my best. But I think when I was 21, 22, I had my own business as a painter and a decorator, and I used to work 3.5 days a week, and then I'd spend the rest of the time one day preaching on a Friday and maybe a Saturday and a Sunday, and then it used to add up to around about 15 hours a week. Now, there's a video I watched the other day, and it talked about how the Jehovah's Witnesses keep track of everything. So if you placed any watchtowers or magazines, or you started a Bible study, or you knocked on someone's door, you would keep notes, and it was all about statistics. And so you'd write down how many hours you spent each week, and to be an auxiliary pioneer, you needed to do 60 hours of preaching a month. And that's how it worked. I think it's auxiliary, or is it? I can't remember these days, but it used to be 60, 90, and 110 if you were, and if you did 110 hours a month, you used to be a special type of pioneer and you used to get a little bit of money from the organisation. That was technically donated, not donated, what do they call it? You'd get money from the JW.org. You'd get an allowance. Bit like a pyramid scheme, isn't it, really? Yeah, that if you climb up the multi-level marketing, you'd get some sort of money, and then you would put that money towards your lifestyle. Now, none of our lifestyles were lavish because you were only you couldn't get any education, you couldn't join any sports teams, you couldn't become anyone special because your life was going to be destroyed soon. No, not your life was going to be destroyed soon, but the world was going to be destroyed soon. So, you didn't bother getting an education like a lawyer or a doctor or anything like that. You'd become a window cleaner, a painter, a carpet cleaner, maybe a builder, electrician if you were lucky, and you would just basically get away with a minimum wage. So let's carry on.
Linda Warfield's life of struggles, drugs, prostitution, mental health, and suicide attempts.
Yeah, so unfortunately my sister was never baptised. I think she may have become an unbaptised publisher. And this is where it gets a bit weird because my sister, basically life went off the tracks and she got involved in all sorts of things, and we were all trying to get her back on track. And so was I. That was my mission.
My sister became quite a wild child. She smoked, started doing heavy drugs, and got into prostitution. Linda spent the majority of her time living life to the fullest. She was the life of any party and lived in Sydney for a few years, then finished up getting married. I remember her telling me that she used to tell her husband she was running a catering business and she would go out and prostitute herself at night time. Once her marriage ended, she returned to New Zealand with Ashley, who was only 18 months old at the time. At this time, I was flatting and one of my flatmates took a liking to my sister and they ended up having a relationship and she got pregnant. Andrew was disfellowshipped from the Jehovah's Witness organisation for his actions.
Yeah, so you got Ashley there in the picture and he's holding his sister Sam. It's one of my most favourite pictures. He had amazing hair. When I first met Ashley, he was in a wheelchair, 18 months old, and I still remember picking my sister up from the airport when she came back from Sydney. We had no idea of her lifestyle and what she'd been doing, but every time she'd come back to New Zealand for a visit, she used to have this white, bleached blonde hair, and she did look like a lady of the night, unfortunately.
My sister ended up having 2 children. When Samantha was born, she got a severe case of postnatal depression. One day the police notified us that a family friend had reported Linda because she was trying to smother Samantha at the age of 2.5, which was a horrific thing to hear about for everyone.
Yeah, no, it was a shocking time because we thought she was semi-okay. We kind of had no idea, and then all of a sudden we realised that the situation is pretty dramatic. And we're one of those people that you hear about on the radio or the TV, and then you think, oh my goodness, that's my sister.
Linda was admitted to Princess Margaret Hospital, drugged to her eyeballs and receiving electric shock treatment. She spent the next 2.5 years in and out of hospital, trying to get on top of her postnatal depression. She was a frequent visitor to Sunnyside Hospital, which was a mental asylum.
Yeah, I spent lots of time going back and forth and visiting her in hospital. My brother, who's a good Jehovah's Witness, didn't believe it was that serious, and he never visited her in any of the mental hospitals or Princess Margaret. She was in and out of Princess Margaret for 2.5 years. She was New Zealand's worst postnatal depression case, and he never, ever once visited her in hospital. He just left her to it. And that's why I get so annoyed with him when she took her own life, or she chose to take her life by suicide. He stepped in and wanted to be the hero and wanted to organise all the funeral. And I said, you've had nothing to do with her for the last 2.5 years, and you've ridiculed me every time I've mentioned about how serious her health was, and you just want to wave your flag on the finish line. Now, just in case I've got a bit of a red face today, it's because I've had 2 beers, I needed some Dutch courage, and also I've got lights pointing in my face, and it's pretty hot in here. Just a bit of disclaimer in case you're wondering why I'm looking a bit red.
I remember Linda's multiple suicide attempts. One that I will never forget was when she cut herself so much. She required 47 stitches up one arm and 25 up the other arm. I still shake my head when I read those words.
I just can't comprehend it. You know, like literally I would have witnessed 50 suicide attempts. You know, my sister drove her car into her house, after having a argument with her lover, her lesbian lover. And I rushed into the house. She rang me up screaming. I grabbed a baseball bat, put it in the car, went around to the house, walked into the house. There was razor blades in the house, 2 bottles of empty vodka, no one in the house. What happened? Next thing, my sister runs in, and this lady, Lindy Murdoch, her name was, ran into the house, and she said, you know, she chased me around the block and saved me, Danny. Okay. So I said, what's happening? I told this Lindy Murdoch lady to get out of the house. I'm holding her by the hair, and she's laying into me like this, and I'm just walking her out the house. And I already called the police. Police turn up, and they think I'm the aggressor. And next minute, I said, look at their wrists. They look at their wrists, and they see the blood. And we're in in the police car on the way to the 24-hour surgery to get them both stitched up. It was just amazing. But yeah, 47 stitches. Up here, she had racing stripes all the way along. One suicide attempt, 47 stitches, 25 in the other. It was just horrific times, and I can't even express what that's like living with somebody. And if you've lived with anyone that doesn't want to be on this planet and they're continuously trying to take their own life, I honestly believe it's a cry for help. And you know, I can't even comprehend. I can't even explain it to you. And I don't. This is quite a personal video, but I want to. The reason I'm doing this video is because I want to show you the effects that the Jehovah's Witness organization had on my life, my sister's life, my stepfather's life, my brother's life, my mum's life, my nephew and my nieces, who I love to pieces. But the only way I'm ever going to have any relationship with them is I come back to this horrible, narcissistic, gaslighting organization called the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I do not believe anything they teach what I got taught. I got taught to be versed on how to overcome obstacles and everything. They're just full of lies. It's an organization that has a printing company, and they've come up with a cunning way to get people to get money for selling their publications. And they are investing. They have millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of investments out there in these worldly organizations that they also believe are going to be done away with when God steps in. I mean, there's contradictions all over the place. It disgusts me.
One day, I received a screaming phone call from her.
Oh.
I rushed around to her house to see that her car had been driven into the house. Linda and her lesbian lover had decided to do a Thelma and Louise. Their plan was to drink a bottle of vodka each to give them enough courage to take their own lives. Somehow, this resulted in an argument, and Linda called me to fix it all. I remember razor blades, physically having to break up the argument, calling for police help, and having to convince the 3 police cars with their sirens blazing, that I wasn't the aggressor. I told the police to look at their wrists, and then we were rushed to the 24-hour surgery in a police car. The icing on the top was my sister telling me on the way that she had been talking to my dead father all afternoon.
Yeah, I think I just told you that, guys. So obviously I've got a pretty true recollection of actually what happened. Okay, here we go.
I could tell you stories all day long. I always seemed to be the person my sister would call when she got herself in trouble. We were actually very close, even if we fought like cats and dogs growing up. I spent years supporting her, and I lost count of the number of times I had to help her move house. I had a relationship with her washing machine that I do not miss, especially the time she decided to live in an upstairs apartment and I had to carry it up the stairs. I would take her to her psychologist, and I even attended some of the sessions with her. I listened as she shared incredibly sad and very personal experiences, which I will keep between me and my sister.
Yeah. I'm just going to pause the video. My battery's going flat in my camera. Won't be a second. I'm back. Didn't even notice, did you? Yes, I've also lost my train of thought. What have we got? Yep, the washing machine. You know, here you have these flashbacks. I still remember, boom, 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 carrying the washing machine up these stairs. And when I went to her funeral, I remember actually sharing that experience with the people that were listening to me. I do talk about the funeral, and I will double up here now and again, but the people at my sister's funeral, we couldn't hold that at a Kingdom Hall. My mum's family were actually not law-abiding citizens. My mum had the most hardest life ever. So every funeral we have in our family, there's always somebody sitting there with a police guard and handcuffs, because a lot of my mum's family are still in prison for the acts that they have done. So when I'm sitting here looking at the audience, I can see people who are Jehovah's Witnesses who basically don't talk to me. And I've got people that are worldly people who are in handcuffs listening to me. And I'm literally talking to some people that won't speak to me, but I get to talk. So I told some experiences about my sister's life, and this was one of them, was the washing machine. I won't miss my sister moving home and me having to move her, which I think I did about 10 times.
One last freaky story. I decided to return home at 10 o'clock one Friday morning when my sister was back at home living with the family again. She had the video, Pink Floyd's The Wall, playing on TV extremely loud, and all the windows of the house were open. I looked through the window and saw her cutting herself with a razor blade. I had to take her to the doctor immediately. I had to manhandle her into the car and throw a duvet over her as she was not clothed. She was then taken to the hospital in an ambulance. She had cut her wrist once again and overdosed on all the medication. The doctor said I had saved her life this time. If you looked at my sister's arms, you would see racing stripes up and down from previous suicide attempts.
Yeah, it's quite hard to actually listen to this, I'll be honest. Pink Floyd, the Wall, you're probably thinking, oh, I know the song. Well, in the Jehovah's Witness faith, we weren't allowed to listen to things like Stairway to Heaven, because that was written under demonic influences. Music, there's a lot of music we weren't allowed to listen to. Pink Floyd, The Wall was the definite one that we weren't. Like reading Stephen King books, they were banned. You weren't allowed to watch those or listen to those. So my sister did all that, and it used to scare me at the time, because anything to do with Satan and his demons used to scare the living crap. We used to have elders that used to go around to people's places that used to get rid of the demons. People would buy jewelry, and they would be like, this are the stories that we heard, but people would be laying in their bed at night, and some demon would grab their foot and yank it, or they would even have sexual relationships with people. You know, things would happen to people, and the elders of the church, the Jehovah's Witness church, would go around there and sort of cleanse the house. You know, and if you had any old jewelry, you weren't allowed to buy it, because it could have been, had demons in it. So it was really weird when I look back. But a lot of things I don't even talk about, even in this blog or this article that I've written, I haven't even mentioned. But the music was definitely something that we had to watch what we listened to. And as I said earlier on, when Grant wanted me to be the best man at his wedding, one of the reasons I didn't want to be his best man, because he used to go to all these R-rated movies, and they were only R13s, but because he was an elder son, he could get away with it. So his father was an elder, and the elder son could go to all these R-rated movies that my conscience at the time, wouldn't allow me to do. So because of that, I didn't feel it was right for me to be his best man at his wedding. Sorry, Grant.
2 lives lost by suicide. The devastating effects of religious pressure.
Now, this is something I tell people, and they realize that, this is pretty amazing stuff. This next paragraph really blows me away even today. And I want to tell the story rather than have it read. I will read it after I do in case I miss some bits. But my sister and my stepfather both took their lives on the 3rd of December. My sister was 36 years of age. My stepfather was also 36 years of age. My sister took her own life in a suicide asylum called Sunnyside, which has been shut down. She was on 15-minute suicide watch, and she took the belt off her, she took the belt of her trousers and she hung herself. She meant business. All the other suicide attempts that she had were really a cry for help. But this time, she'd never tried to hang herself before. So I still think back and when I, used to tell my brother that Linda was going through some real hard times, he used to just ridicule my thinking. He said, I didn't know what I was talking about. My sister was taking like 50 pills a day for depression. She would take one pill that would, and then she'd have to take another pill so it didn't have a side effect. And she had a tray of pills. My sister was bulimic, so she was at one point 16 and a half stone. And then, she met this guy, she got pregnant, and my brother wanted another child. So they told my sister that if the baby was born healthy, they would adopt it. So carry on with the, pregnancy. The doctor said that there's no way in hell that my sister would give a healthy birth because of the medication she was on. So I said to my brother at the time, I said, look, you want a healthy baby, and if it's not healthy, you won't adopt it. Who do you think is going to be looking after this baby if it's not healthy? It'll be my mother. And my brother went back and told my sister what I told her. And, then she turned on me and basically said that I'm moving out of home. She had an argument with my mother. And, and this was all the start of it, really. So my sister left home and started up her own place. And there's more to it, but I'm just not going to go there on this video right now. But my brother basically didn't give a shit about my sister. He was always looking out for himself. And unfortunately, she lost the baby. And they never got a baby. And my mum didn't have to bring up another one of my sister's children, which was sort of a blessing in disguise. But anyway, let's carry on.
On December 3rd, when my sister was 36 years old and on 15-minute suicide watch at Sunnyside Hospital, she took her own life by hanging herself off the window ledge with her belt. My stepfather, Robert D. Heck, also took his own life on December 3rd, and he was also 36 years old. There's no doubt in my mind that my stepfather's suicide and the pressures that the Jehovah's Witness organization put on individuals had a major impact on everything that happened in both Linda and Robert's lives.
I know this is my story and you might not get it, but that little girl there was my sister, and she's gorgeous. And she was going through, she had an awesome time. I remember, I think it was Stephen Walker was her boyfriend at the time. And he flattered with that was his shoes, nomads. And, at that time, it's such an innocent time of life, and that's the part of her life that I remember the most.
I don't think it takes a psychology degree to know that people suffer from depression when they can't live up to the expectations that a religious cult puts on people. It's a known fact that many ex-Jehovah's Witness people died from suicide. I know firsthand what it's like to be excommunicated from something that you use to support yourself like a crutch. It's devastating. I was excommunicated during a time of need, and I lost the majority of my family, including my mother, my brother, and all the people that I grew up with when I was trying to deal with all the things that were going on. This still continues to this day.
It does. Just like I said previously, minding my own business, haven't heard from my brother, I don't know, for 5 years perhaps, and then he posts something. I've been chatting to him on text. It just pisses me off, and then he sticks his nose into my life. And honestly, the way I deal with this is my mother is as good as dead. Everyone in my family is as good as dead, except for the people who have been kicked out of the Jehovah's Witness organisation. That's how I process things, I'll just carry on.
I remember the funeral, which we couldn't hold at the Kingdom Hall, and seeing all of the family friends looking at me as I gave a speech about Linda's life. I remember saying that Linda had been planning this day for years and that we should celebrate it with her. I looked directly at those same families who had helped support us when we were going through terrible times, coming to terms with Robert's suicide, but who were no longer speaking to me because I was disfellowshipped. Yet here I was, standing on the stage, looking at those very people. I will never forget what I said.
Yeah, and I think this is word for word.
If Linda were standing here and talking to you, she would want to thank all the people who did those random acts of kindness for our family when we were growing up, including the Joneses, the Martins, and the Fords. This is a sad day for us, but a peaceful day for Linda. It was an interesting experience, being able to look people in the eye and talk to them, while they wouldn't talk to me because they were still part of the Jehovah's Witness cult.
Yeah, really unusual experience. Remember it as clear as day, really. But, my sister rests. They cremated her, of course, even though she wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. And her ashes stayed in my mum's wardrobe for 4 or 5 years. And let me explain what happened to those, because that's another saga in itself.
Jehovah's Witnesses and Disownment, coping with loss and grief.
So remember, taking death by suicide is death by suicide is something the Jehovah's Witnesses don't have a chapter in their Bible to deal with. So they don't know how to deal with it, and they don't.
So I'm disfellowshipped, and my mother is still clinging onto the Jehovah's Witness organisation with all her might. She simply loves the organisation more than her own son. My mother and I stepped in to continue bringing up Linda's son, Ashley. She agreed to let me move into the sleep out at the back of the house, and I would drop Ashley off at childcare in the morning and she would pick him up in the afternoons. This was probably the most normal my life had been since I was disfellowshipped. Mum was still trying to encourage me to come back to Jehovah, but I had had enough. I was sick of the religion, and I didn't believe in it anymore.
Yeah, so when I've done this video yesterday, and I listened to it when I was out walking Pixel, my dog, and I didn't actually do a good job of it. And what I stuffed up on the last video is I got all the timelines wrong, because my sister's obviously, I've just told you, my sister's taken her own life, but this conversation here was actually about when she was still alive and she had actually moved back home. So I was kicked out of the Jehovah's Witness faith, and then my sister was in need of help. So she moved home, and I also moved into the sleep out. Now, I think I moved into the sleep out first to help my mother with Ashley and drop him off at childcare and the like. Samantha was farmed out to her father, for the use of a better word, and then Linda's life got to the point where she needed help from mum, so she moved back into the family home as well. So I don't think I've read that paragraph. So just to give you a sort of an update on the timeline so you understand where I'm coming from, because last time I did this, which you don't know, is basically I got this wrong. So my sister was still alive at this point.
So I'm disfellowshipped, and my mother is still clinging onto the Jehovah's Witness organisation with all her might. She simply loves the organisation more than her own son. My mother and I stepped in to continue bringing up Linda's son,
I think I did read this, and just in case I didn't, I do these recordings live. Basically, I went back home to help look after Ashley. And that's what I did. But my sister also moved into the same home at that time. And that was when she was living at home with myself and my mother. She met this other guy who's a good Catholic boy and said that they don't believe in sex before marriage, but got her pregnant somehow. Maybe she was Mary after all. But my sister was bulimic at the time, and she was 16 stones, and then she went anorexic all within about 18 months.
I have been through a lot with my mother. The Jehovah's Witnesses disowned us when my father took his own life, because it was considered disrespectful and shameful. They left us to deal with the aftermath ourselves, and we were not even allowed to have a memorial service for him in the Kingdom Hall. I was so young at the time that I didn't get to go to the funeral, and for years, I held out hope that he might still be alive somewhere.
Yeah, so dare I be victim mentality. If I tell this story to any Jehovah's Witness or anyone that knows me, they tell me that I'm using victim mentality and I'm just trying to milk this as much as I can. This is my life. This is what happened to me. And I'm not a wreck. I've actually survived and thrived in life, and I've actually been given a new lease on life because I managed to break away from the Jehovah's Witness organisation. And if you want a hand in doing the same, reach out to me. Go to theheck.com, find my email address, text me, join my Telegram group, and I'm here to help you because I know it's so hard to break away from the religious cult of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
When Robert D. Heck took his own life, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye or have any closure. I was disfellowshipped at the age of 23, but I moved back to the family home to help raise my nephew Ashley. Samantha, my other niece, was looked after by her father, who had been reinstated as a Jehovah's Witness and had remarried. We used to get the kids together on weekends so they could spend time with family. Linda was still battling addiction at this time and eventually moved back in with us as W.L.
Yeah, so let's just carry on so you're not here all night.
This religion has caused us nothing but pain. It has been a crutch for my mother, and to be honest, it was for me at one point as well. I don't resent the people in the religion for the way they treated my mother or our family. I simply don't believe it's the true religion. I see the other side of it, the money-making side that uses people to keep the organisation running.
Yep, and they do. They have a lot of investments. We've got Kim and Mike and Kim. If you search for the ex-Jehovah's Witness Facebook group, they've got videos on there showing you how much money the Jehovah's Witness organisation actually has. It's breathtaking. And here they are, every meeting, encouraging people to give like the widow's mite and donate to the church because they need your money and they're just investing it. So it's all about the money. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Yeah, and it's just interesting, really. So, and it's like, yeah, do I hate Jehovah's Witnesses? Would I walk into a kingdom hall and shoot 6 people dead and injure 8 others, including an unborn baby like they did in Hamburg in Germany? Of course I wouldn't. I did have a firearms license. I used to be a target shooter. I used to shoot cardboard. I don't think that way. I don't want to give revenge to the Jehovah's Witnesses. So as the message goes back here is how am I supposed to feel? How am I meant to feel about an organisation that actually thinks that God is going to wipe out every single man, woman, child in the world with fire and sulfur from the heavens? God's going to do away with everyone that's not a Jehovah's Witness. This is what they think. All right? All the false religions, the same false religions that now want to hold memorial services for the 7 people that have lost their lives. They all want to hold memorial services for their communities, and the Jehovah's Witnesses are up in arms saying that we're fine by ourselves. We don't want your help. In fact, you guys don't need to do any memorial services. We do our own memorial services. They don't do funerals. No, they don't. They believe in cremating people. From ashes to ashes, dust to dust, shall they return. So, yes, did I read that? I think I did. So, lack of understanding of mental health and negligence by the Jehovah's Witnesses. They need to change the way they do things. You can't shun people. Mental health. People take their own lives. They choose to end their lives by suicide. And you guys are doing that. And you haven't changed your way since the 1900s. It's disgusting. And it's just not the way. I mean, think about it. If I want to have anything to do with my mother, my brother, I have to go back into a religion that I don't believe is real. I don't believe in the Bible. I don't even believe in eternal life. I don't believe in the paradise. I don't believe anything. But the only way I'm going to ever have a relationship with my flesh and blood family is by getting back into a religion. Now, I've got the ability now, thinking I know that I can build good friendships outside the organisation. I have better friends than I do family. And you can do the same. If you're on the fence and thinking about getting out of the Jehovah's Witness organisation, reach out to me. I will teach you how to build friendships and have good relationships with people that you can trust. We were told never to trust anybody.
It's true that my stepfather and my sister may have had mental health issues and could have benefited from professional help instead of just advice from elders with no training in that area.
Too right.
The Bible states that you shouldn't show disrespect for your life, as it is a gift from Jehovah. Mental health is not specifically addressed in the Bible. These days, the Jehovah's Witnesses believe it's a sickness, but they still won't allow a memorial service in the Kingdom Hall for someone who takes their own life. It seems like they are just trying to keep up appearances.
Oh, I don't know what they're trying to do, but death by suicide, you cannot have a memorial service in the Kingdom Hall. You have to go do it. Like we went to John's Road Cemetery, just by the motorway here in Christchurch, and that wasn't part of the Kingdom Hall. Anywhere, if you die by any other means, you can have the privilege of having a memorial service in the Kingdom Hall with all your friends and family. Otherwise, you're castrated by the organisation. So at the time of need, once again, my mother, my brother, my sister, myself, were told that they couldn't have any, memorial service associated with the Jehovah's Witnesses because they didn't want to have anything to do with it. Can you believe that?
Samantha was raised by her father, Andrew, and is now married with her own family. She was sheltered from a lot of what happened with her mother and doesn't like me talking about it. Even though she has shown some curiosity and wanted to know more, she's still trying to process everything. In the meantime, she gives me the silent treatment.
Yeah, so I went out with Sam one day for lunch and she begged me to tell me the real version of her mother's story. I didn't realise how protected she was with her environment that she was brought up with, and I told her all about the suicide attempts. I told her about her mother, it was a heroin addict. I told her about her mother being a prostitute and all these terrible things that you don't want to hear about your mother, and also all the suicide attempts, all the things that happened between my brother, my sister, my mother, and she just couldn't process the information. And now she doesn't have anything to do with me. So this is how ex-Jehovah's Witness, because she's not even in the Jehovah's Witness organisation, process stuff. They give you the silent treatment. I mean, one day she may pop back into my life, and I love it a bit. You know, I've tried to stay in contact with her as much as possible. I haven't heard it from her for, I don't know, maybe 2 years. And she went through a real rough patch when she was growing up, and honestly I met her one night out in a nightclub and she was looking exactly like her mother, and I thought, oh my God, she's going to go down the same path as her mother. She got herself, she was at the age of 15 years of age, she was kicked out of a home because her father's new partner didn't like teenagers. So he set her up in a bedsit with worldly people. She worked at KB's bakery. She got fired from that job because she was stealing food. The truth of the matter is she was living in a one-bedroom place with a whole lot of strangers. She had a guinea pig. She was stealing food because she was hungry, and then they found out about it and they kicked her out. Then she landed on her feet and she got a job working for a government organisation, I think Statistics New Zealand, and I remember being invited to go along to her birthday party. She had 40 people there that loved her to bits. And it was the most joyful experience ever. And she was living her own life. She had got herself a good job. She had grown up. She was a big girl. And she now has had a child. She's in a loving relationship. And I'm so happy for her. But then she wanted to go out with lunch with Uncle Danny. And she wanted to know more about her mother that she'd never heard about. I mean, I don't like talking about this. I don't have any shame. I'm transparent. But the honest truth, it was too much for Sam to process. And she didn't want her name on this. And Ashley doesn't. Everyone just wants to put everything under the rug. Well, I'm past rugs, guys. This is my life. If my information helps anyone else who's trying to process their life because of this religious cult, I'm out there telling it. I mean, if somebody stumbles across this and they find out that Samantha has had a shit life because of her upbringing as a Jehovah's Witness, then so be it. I don't see the badness in that. Doesn't change that Sam is a beautiful person. Ashley, well, he's pig-headed and stubborn, very similar to my brother. I don't think I'm ever going to twist him around. He's tried to convince my mother to take me to court without success. And so be it. That's his life. He wants to live that way. So be it. And you see the pattern with these guys. Even Ashley doesn't have friends around him. He doesn't know how to build friendships. He went to live with my brother for a short period of time. That didn't last long. So it takes a long time before you sort of kind of grow up and make your own life and realize that family is important, but not in the family is important if you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness, because that's what they use to bribe you with to get you back into the organization. So it's really a shame when like Samantha and Ashley don't have anything to do with me. They think I'm the crazy uncle. They ridicule me. They give me a hard time. They abuse me. Whatever. You just sort of like got to live your own life and focus on your friends that you have around you in your life who understand where you're coming from. Never get involved in a religious cult like the Jehovah's Witnesses. The first thing they'll go after is your family. So to me, my family, my immediate family is as good as dead. And I'm sure I'm as good as dead to them as well. So when my brother decided to stick his nose into my videos about the crypto Ponzi scheme Avenger, he doesn't even know what I'm doing, who I am, what I stand for, what values I have. And then he throws in another insult along the way. Doesn't even spell my name correctly. And that's the way he wants to roll. He's full of hatred. He's a victim himself, which is really disgusting. He got done for DIC because he'd been drinking too much. He's a house painter. He's been a house painter for 40 bloody years. I mean, oh my God, really? My stepfather was a house painter. Ray Martin, his best friend that I worked for, was a house painter. Rickie Charlesworth was a house painter. And Danny DeHeck was a house painter for 10 years. And now I'm the crypto Ponzi scheme Avenger. Much better.
I'm proud of my sister's children, Samantha and Ashley.
Too right.
I'm also proud of my brother's children, Levi, Jesse, and Jasmine, especially as they haven't let this organization bog them down and have got on with life. They probably think I am a crazy uncle who has a chip on his shoulder about the Jehovah's Witness organization,
True.
Which is probably not too far from the truth. I honestly feel it's one of the most selfish religions in the world, but I am no longer a brainwashed, heartless robot that knocks on your door.
Yeah, you won't get me knocking on your door anytime soon. Sorry about that, folks. If you do get a knock on the door from the Jehovah's Witness, we got taught how to handle people that weren't interested. And I'll tell you how it works. Knock, knock, knock. Hello? I'm just in the area today. I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And the person would say they're not interested. You know what you say then? You say, are you not interested in Jehovah's Witnesses or in religion? Most people, out of politeness, will say religion. And then you say, well, I can understand that because religion is responsible for a lot of the mayhem that's going on in the world at the moment. Wouldn't you agree? Most people would agree. And then you say, let me show you from the Bible. And then away you went. It's just ridiculous. This is my brother's family. So I'm going to just go through. You got Jesse, Levi, Jasmine. You got Cheryl, which is my brother's ex-wife. And then you've got Samantha and myself. Now, my brother should be in that photo because that is his family, or his old family, and it's just a shame that he's not. But that was a barbecue. Oh, what are we doing here, Danny? What have I done? That was a barbecue I went to a wee while ago, probably a couple of 3 years ago, and it was so nice to spend that time with him. But I am really proud of Jesse, Levi, Jasmine. Jasmine got baptized, but they've got on with their life, and so has Sam. It's so awesome. Ashley, well, he's too pig-headed and stubborn to actually adjust to any of his ways. It's his way or the highway, which unfortunately is probably rubbed off from my brother. All right, used to talk about the elders in the congregation. So this is quite funny, the next part, because I don't know if you've ever studied what a shepherd does, and that's what the elders in the congregation are.
They used to talk about the elders in the congregation as shepherds looking after their sheep. If you think about any shepherd that you know, normally he's trying to keep the flock together so he can take them to the slaughter to make a living. This isn't far from the truth. The Watchtower Bible and track societyism and made religion, and their numbers are declining at a steady rate. They are now sending missionaries out to third world countries, seeking lost sheep. I truly believe they are doing this to get their numbers up again.
Yeah, they are. And this is a really weird thing that you actually see happening is they literally are going to this third world country, which is easy plucking. And it's all about the numbers and the statistics and the amount of Jehovah's Witnesses in the world. I've had numerous conversations with people trying to convince me to come back to the Jehovah's Witness faith who are in Nigeria or Kenya. It's just amazing.
It is saddening to think that if I did die or I took my own life, like I could have done, whether any of my family would ever miss me or shed a tear. Imagine contemplating whether you would attend a funeral if someone from your family dies. Doesn't that sound like an unnatural decision to make?
I promise you, my brother wouldn't care if I'm alive or dead. And unfortunately, I've tried to come to terms with the feeling of when my mother dies. I've said to other family members that are outside, that are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, what happens when my mum dies? Because I don't want to go through the same experience I had when I went to Grant's funeral and I get told to leave for my own mother's funeral because, memorial service, because we don't do funerals, because people don't know whether I'm disfellowshipped or not 30 years after I've been kicked out of the organisation. So, honestly, I will not be going to my mother's funeral. Isn't that an unnatural thing to say? So we're going to have a private memorial service with just me and the people who really care, and we're going to do our own thing. That's how we're going to deal with it. I love my mum to bits. She means everything to me, but I'm not going to put myself through the pain of going to a funeral and being ridiculed by people who claim to be good good Christians and who will not talk to somebody because they have dedicated their life to Jehovah at the age of 17. It's just ridiculous.
I will never get closure, and I'm certainly not a prodigal son. These people who hold on to the truth like my dear mother would simply not be able to survive without her belief in a paradise earth, as she is too invested. With the constant repetition of brainwashing techniques that you are continuously bombarded with when attending the meetings, it is too hard to just walk away and start a whole new way of thinking. After all, they have your family and friends.
Yeah, so imagine that you get taught all your life that you're going to live on a paradise earth and live forever, right? And you're not going to have any health problems. And then all the wicked people are going to be destroyed. You actually pray for this when you pray 3 times a day at least. We should be praying more, that all the wicked people in the world are going to be done away with, destroyed. People like me, who know better. I'm a non-believer. I'm better than a non-believer. I'm worse than a non-believer because I know the truth. And I've turned my back on Jehovah. I am the first person that Jehovah is going to wipe off this planet with lightning, sulfur, and then everyone else is going to be wiped away. Everybody. And the only people that are going to possess the earth is the Jehovah's Witnesses. All the false religions, everything else that you've been brought up with is going to be destroyed. So that's what the Jehovah's Witnesses pray for every day.
If you get involved with the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society and choose to turn your back on Jehovah, the first thing they will do is strip away your family and friends, and they say they do this out of love. This one action alone can push people over the edge, just like they did with my sister Linda and my stepfather Robert.
Yeah. So my mum considered this blog that I'm reading you an act of violence. And she decided that she needed to get a protection order from me. So the courts basically threw it out, and they said that my mother wasn't in the fit frame of mind to actually be into the court system. So they got a medical report saying that my mum, who was theoretically pursuing legal action to get this blog that I'm reading right now taken off the internet, sent my nephew along instead, and he was there representing my mother. The judge said that Danny's entitled to tell his story, and this is my story. And I signed an agreement to say that I wouldn't go around to my mum's house, which was really funny because I don't go around my mum's house already because she doesn't want me there because she loves Jehovah more than me. Bit of a laugh to be. So what's the aftermath?
The aftermath of being part of this organisation is life-changing, and it affects people differently. For me, watching my nephews and nieces navigate out of the religious cult compels me to speak out. I am a survivor, and there are many other survivors. If you are one of them and you feel lonely or depressed, you are welcome to join our community on our private Facebook group Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses Family, where you can share your experiences with a new family.
Right, so if you are listening to this on my podcast, which this is going to be a podcast as well, please do, if you're watching this on my podcast, go to theheck.com and search for Jehovah, and you'll find this very blog and the links. This is my ex-Jehovah Witness community Facebook page, and basically it is like the what do you call it? The Muffet family. We're all different. We've all got a different story. We've all been affected by being involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't spend that much time in here, but there is some good posts and there's some people, and they can get you help if you need to. Reach out to me. You're more than welcome. So if we go back to the things I really wanted to do this video about, first of all, the shooting. 36 people gathered together in a Kingdom Hall, 25 people joining online, and a man fires 10 bullets into a vehicle trying to harm a lady that she manages to escape. 135 rounds of ammunition fired inside the Kingdom Hall. Kills 6 people, injures 8. One of those 8 is a lady who had an unborn baby, 7 months old. The ex-Jehovah's Witness community, the governing body basically put out a statement blaming the ex-JW community for this shooting, which is why I'm doing this video. I've never heard of anything so ridiculous. The ex-JW community never condone anyone to take violence up against any ex-Jehovah's Witness. It's not. The ex-Jehovah's Witness community is there to help people survive and thrive after going through a horrible ordeal of being part of that organization. Other churches in Hamburg, Germany, want to hold memorial services. A representative from the Jehovah's Witness expressed outrage because they're stating that this cannot replace the funeral services that the Jehovah's Witnesses provide. They don't have funerals, they have memorial services. People in the community, like other religions, they want to show that they are in support of. They said they were expressing their condolences and emphasized the importance of standing together and praying across the denominations. The Jehovah's Witnesses want these other churches destroyed. They pray every day, wanting these religions that are now offering their hand in condolences and that they were going to be destroyed. Anthony Morris, the guy that was famous for blowing out a match, saying that God is going to distinguish the wicked people in the earth, on the earth, just like blowing out a match and smoke will disappear. Now he's been thrown out of the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, which is amazing. And now he's going to be like a disfellowship person. Hopefully he doesn't take his own life, because that will be another one of thousands of people that have taken their own lives. Rickie Charlesworth, my brother, he can only throw insults at me. That's all he knows. He's a victim himself. I feel for him. He tells me he doesn't want to speak to me because I will not change my ways, but he will not listen to any new thinking. He is brainwashed by the Jehovah's Witnesses. My mother, here she is. She laid a complaint with the court stating that my blog was an act of violence and she needed a protection order. She claimed that I had posted my blog on a website, a Facebook group, which has 110,000 members. This Facebook group was set up by ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. 110,000 people had joined it, and they used to post information of horrific stories, like the one I'm telling you now about my sister and my stepfather, who chose to end their life by suicide because of the expectations that the Jehovah's Witness Church puts on them. What was the outcome of my mother? Well, it wasn't actually my mother, because she rang me up 2 weeks before the court case, checking on my welfare to make sure that I didn't have suicidal thoughts. And I said, Mum, do you realise you are taking me to court in 2 weeks' time? If you really care about my mental well-being, perhaps don't do that. A week later, she's now unfit to go to court. And my nephew, who was pushing the case, decides to go along there and represent the situation in hand for a non-legal discussion. And what was the outcome? I'm back to where I started, not to go around to my mum's place. Well, I haven't been going around my mum's place, so nothing gained, nothing ventured. Absolutely terrible. Hey, look, I feel for the families, anyone. Now, I live in Christchurch, New Zealand. 51 people were shot and killed in 2 mosques that were in Christchurch. They apprehended the guy who was on his way to Ashburton to shoot more people in a mosque. He shot off Rouse, my hairdresser, if you like my hair, Wazim, he got shot 5 times. His daughter got shot. I get my hair cut there all the time. He is a victim. He is a different religion to a Jehovah's Witness. He embraced all the other religions. I remember going to Hagley Park, which is a big park in the centre of Christchurch, my hometown. I reckon just about all of Christchurch was there to support him and the families that got lost loved people by an act of tourism. Now this guy, he wasn't it does sound like he was a baptized Jehovah's Witness. He had been discommunicated he'd chosen to step away from the religion. I must get some of my facts right here. And he'd had a conversation with a lady outside the Kingdom Hall and then fired 10 rounds into the car. She escaped unharmed. And he went into the hall and obviously murdered 6 people. The ex-Jehovah's Witness community would never condone anyone doing that. We're not there for acts of violence. We are there to help people who've been involved in this horrible, disgusting organization that is just about making money. I hate them. And if you're involved and you're looking for a way out, please reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with people. I will talk to you myself and we can have a conversation. If 51 people can lose their life, and even our Prime Minister of New Zealand got accolades for the way she handled this, across the denominations that were here in Christchurch, they all stuck their neck out and supported everyone in their community. But not the Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, no. No. They don't want anything to do with what they call false religion. They don't want anyone to offer them a hand or empathy. They want to handle it all in case. Why is that? Because they are taught by the Jehovah's Witnesses. They are taught by the Jehovah's Witnesses at the meetings that I used to attend that everybody that isn't a Jehovah's Witnesses will be destroyed by God, Jehovah, and he'll wipe everyone out. And also, all the false religions will be done away with. They had their own Bible, the King James, has been rewritten. They even have, I don't know, but I think they have their own Bible now as well. This worldly organization has brainwashed hundreds of people. They weren't even like, my mother was in a desperate state when she found the religion and she clung to it. She needed a community. And this is why Danny DeHeck, the crypto Ponzi scheme avenger, is out there exposing scams because they're very similar to this organization. They promise something that never eventuates. They tell you a bunch of lies to get your crypto or your money. The Jehovah's Witnesses have been telling me lies for the first 23 years of my life. And now I'm an apostate. And that's just it's like saying to people who want to invest in crypto, don't listen to YouTube videos because they're just trying to get people to click on their videos. Hey, if you've been watching this video and I gave you value, please do hit the thumbs up. It helps get these videos out. The last video I did like this, my mum was trying to get off the internet, got about 2,000 views. So thank you very much. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that bell, you'll be notified when I publish new videos. This video is a personal story, but I wanted to answer the question, why do you stick your neck out so much when trying to bust these Ponzi schemes? That's because it reminds me of my upbringing as a Jehovah's Witness. Let's survive and thrive. Hey, thank you for watching. See you next time.